Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. We're diving into some pretty heavy stuff today, folks. The idea of Jewish emissaries.
Shluchim in Hebrew.
Right, Shluchim. And their missions, of course. But, we like to go deep here, so...
We're not just skimming the surface.
Exactly. We've got this lecture from 1992 by a rabbi at, the last Kines, led by the Lubavitcher Rebbe before his passing.
Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, for those who aren't familiar.
Right. And this lecture, it really gives us this incredible, almost like a sneak peek.
A glimpse.
Yeah, a glimpse into how the Rebbe viewed preparing for the Messianic era.
Which, as many listeners know, was a central theme in his teachings.
Absolutely. It's like we're getting a look at the plans, like a master strategist.
Mm.
And this rabbi, he just dives right in, outlines these 4 categories of Shluchim using a Hebrew acronym.
Messiah, the sender; Shihut, the mission itself; then Shiliach, that's the emissary; and finally the process, how the mission is accomplished.
It's like he's giving us the who, what, who's doing it, and how of these missions, all nice and neat.
Systematically breaking it down.
Exactly. And he uses some great examples like, we've got Eliezer, sent by Abraham to find a wife, Rebecca, for his son Isaac.
A classic story.
Then, of course, you've got Moses on his mission to redeem the Israelites from Egypt. But it gets even bigger than that because he's arguing that every Jew, every single one, is an emissary of God.
Chosen to fulfill a purpose.
Right. And finally, he brings in those spies sent by Moses to scout out the land of Canaan. It's like he's showing us that missions, they come in all shapes and sizes.
The spectrum of missions.
Exactly. From, these very specific tasks to like this overarching purpose, woven into every Jewish life.
It's a powerful concept.
It is. So let's dig into this idea that every Jew is an emissary, right? It's not some vague concept. The rabbi connects it to this really powerful idea that God actually desires a dwelling place in this physical world. It's like making the everyday holy, isn't it?
Exactly. Elevating the mundane.
And he even uses this kind of like striking metaphor. He's saying that God is like homeless and needs a place to crash. I mean, it makes you think, right, like, what am I doing with my day? Is making dinner just feeding my family? Or is it, actually an act of creating a dwelling place for the divine?
It forces you to re-examine those everyday tasks.
It really does.
Yeah.
Suddenly, even those like mundane things can have this deeper meaning. So I'm curious, how would you say someone could take that idea, God needing a dwelling place, and actually apply it to their own life?
It's a challenge, but I think it starts with mindfulness, I guess. Seeing the potential for holiness in every single action, every encounter.
That makes sense.
Could be as simple as bringing more intention to your daily routine.
Yeah.
Or treating everyone you meet, with respect, with kindness, like you're welcoming them into a sacred space.
I love that. So we're not just talking about like grand gestures or these big heroic acts, but elevating the everyday, finding that spark of divinity in even the ordinary.
Exactly. And that actually brings us to another great example that the rabbi uses, Eliezer's mission to find Isaac a wife.
Right.
It's a story we think we know, but the rabbi he unveils these layers of meaning that connect it to the Messianic mission.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. What does Eliezer's story have to do with the Messiah?
Well, he introduces these 2 concepts, ma and ban. Ma refers to the spiritual, the intellectual realm, like the world of ideas.
Okay.
And ban is the physical, earthly realm, the world we experience with our senses. In the story, Isaac, he represents Ma, and Rebecca, she embodies ban.
So it's not just about a marriage, it's about something much bigger.
Right. The rabbi saying that their union, it symbolizes this ultimate goal, this uniting of the spiritual and physical realms, bringing heaven down to earth. And it's not passive. This union requires effort, even sacrifice. Remember, Abraham gives Eliezer all his wealth to make sure the mission succeeds.
Wow, that's some serious commitment. It's like saying, I'm putting everything I have into this mission of uniting heaven and earth.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, what are you willing to invest in your own personal mission? What wealth, time, energy, resources are you ready to dedicate to bridge that gap between your spiritual aspirations and your daily life?
That's, it really makes you think, what do I value? What am I willing to put on the line? Now, the rabbi doesn't stop at this abstract idea of ma and ban. He brings in another example, Moses in the Exodus. But there's a twist, right? Because this redemption, it didn't last.
It is temporary.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, why would God send Moses on this mission if it was, seemingly destined to fail?
That's the paradox.
If God's sending you on a mission, shouldn't it be a slam dunk?
Well, the rabbi argues that in that seeming failure, we actually find a profound truth. He says Moses, with his intense desire for complete redemption, actually paved the way for the Messianic era.
It's like his yearning itself, his desire, it pushed things forward.
Exactly. By pleading with God for that final redemption, Moses connected his mission to this future time, a time when his efforts would be fully realized. And, the rabbi suggests that each Passover Seder we celebrate, it's like reliving the Exodus, connecting us to the power of that redemption that Moses initiated.
So it's not just remembering history, you're participating in this ongoing story. It's like Moses handed us the baton and we're supposed to run with it.
Precisely. And that brings us to the rabbi's central point. Preparing for the Messianic era, our mission for today. And he argues that this generation, you listening right now, you are uniquely positioned to prepare for this era.
He's putting the spotlight on us.
Yeah.
So what's our mission? Fighting some, external enemy.
Not exactly. He says it's not about battling outward enemies anymore. It's about creating an environment where the Messiah can be readily accepted. It's about internal transformation, about building a world where such a figure, well, they wouldn't be met with resistance, but with open arms.
So it's not about waiting for someone to save us. It's about actively creating the conditions for that salvation.
And the rabbi challenges listeners to become Shluchim themselves.
Like Eliezer and Moses.
Exactly. He says we can do this in a few ways. By educating others about the Messianic concept, by helping others connect to their own, inner potential for good, and by fostering a climate of, joy, acceptance, and unity.
It's like he's saying, don't just sit around waiting for the Messiah. Go out there and build the world you want to see.
That's a great way to put it. And that's where things get really interesting because he starts to break down the how. He gets into the nitty-gritty of how we can actually prepare for this Messianic era in tangible ways.
Okay, I'm all ears. Give me the playbook. What's step one?
Well, he starts by emphasizing education and not just book learning. He's talking about deepening our understanding of the Torah, of its relevance to our lives. He really believes that knowledge is power. The more we understand the Messianic concept, the better equipped we'll be to actually share it with others and create this environment of acceptance.
So not just preaching, but actually living those teachings.
Precisely. Leading by example. Demonstrating through our actions, what it means to live a life guided by compassion, kindness, and a commitment to justice.
Don't just talk the talk, walk the walk. Right? Actions speak louder than words.
And he even uses this funny analogy. He compares it to preparing a delicious meal. He says, just like you need the right ingredients and careful preparation to create a really satisfying dish, you need the right mindset and actions to create a world where the Messiah can flourish. It's about nurturing those seeds of goodness, creating that fertile ground for positive change.
I love that analogy. It makes it, relatable. It's like, okay, I get cooking. I can apply those same principles to creating a better world.
Exactly. And he reminds us, it's not a solo mission, it's collaborative. He encourages us to connect with like-minded individuals, build communities that can support each other in this. He even suggests learning from those who might have a different perspective,
Right.
Engaging in respectful dialogue can help us understand the Messianic concept better and find new ways to share it.
It's about building bridges, not walls.
Yeah.
Recognizing that we're all in this together. This mission of preparing for the Messianic era, it's not just some far-off goal. It's about living a more fulfilling life right now.
Exactly. He argues that by embracing these principles, kindness, compassion, justice, we not only prepare for the Messianic era, but we actually create a more harmonious, joyful world for ourselves and everyone around us. It's a win-win.
Now, I know we've covered a lot here.
We have.
It's a lot to take in. This idea of every Jew being an emissary, uniting the spiritual and physical, and this whole vision of preparing for the Messianic era. It's a lot to digest. But the rabbi presents it in such a, engaging way. He uses humor, storytelling, real-world examples. It's not just a lecture, it's a call to action.
He wants his listeners to walk away feeling empowered, inspired, ready to play their part.
And he's given us a roadmap. Those principles we can apply to our own lives, recognizing that we have the power to shape the future. And that's a message that's just as relevant today as it was back in 1992.
Now, as we continue our deep dive into this lecture, we'll be exploring some even more fascinating aspects of the rabbi's teachings.
Stay tuned for part 2, where we delve deeper into his insights on refining ourselves spiritually, finding joy, and the tangible steps we can take to bring about the Messianic era.
So picking up where we left off, the rabbi, he introduces this powerful analogy. He compares preparing for the Messianic era to, refining raw materials.
Okay.
Extracting precious metals from ore.
So I'm picturing fire, hammering, That kind of transformation from something raw into something, well, valuable. How does that relate to us?
He suggests that just like those metals need that intense heat, purification, to reach their potential, we go through a process of refinement too, to prepare.
So it's not just outward actions, it's about inner transformation too.
Exactly. Purifying our intentions, our thoughts, even our emotions. And it can be tough, honestly, challenging, even sometimes painful. But he emphasizes, it's through those challenges we grow stronger, more resilient, and I guess more aligned with our true purpose.
I can see that. Like refining gold, it needs to go through fire to become pure. But he doesn't just leave us with this concept, does he? Does he give us any practical tools to actually do this spiritual refining?
He does. He suggests practices like studying Torah, engaging in acts of kindness, reflecting on our actions. He believes they can help us identify, and release those negative patterns that kind of hold us back, those impurities, I guess, that keep us from really shining. And it's not a one-time thing, it's ongoing.
Constantly polishing that inner gold, right? Striving to become more refined.
That's a great way to put it. And even small steps, he assures us, can have a big impact.
Boy.
Even the smallest act of kindness contributes to a more beautiful, more harmonious world.
This makes me think, when he talks about these impurities, what could be holding us back? What comes to mind for you?
That's a good question. And it's personal for each of us. Could be selfishness, anger, judgment, lack of empathy. Could even be holding on to, outdated beliefs or engaging in harmful behaviors. The key, I think, is being honest with ourselves to identify those areas where we need to grow, to refine.
Like taking inventory of our inner toolbox, seeing what needs sharpening. What I find interesting is that the rabbi doesn't just focus on, the heavy stuff, the refining fire, but also joy. Celebration as part of the process.
Yes. And he argues these emotions aren't just like nice to have, they're powerful tools for transformation.
Really? How does joy help us prepare for the Messianic era?
The rabbi believes that experiencing genuine joy allows us to tap into, I guess, a deeper level of connection with ourselves, with the divine. And that connection, it can fuel our actions, inspire us to be more generous, compassionate, create this ripple effect of positivity.
So joy is the fuel, and those positive actions, they propel us towards a better world.
I like that. And he encourages us to create opportunities for celebration, too. Sharing a meal with loved ones, dancing, even just appreciating nature. He believes those moments of joy actually help us raise our consciousness, expand our capacity for love, compassion, and ultimately build a more harmonious world.
So it's not about just, gritting our teeth and pushing through. It's about finding moments of joy, celebrating the good. It's like joy itself is a spiritual practice. But how does this all connect back to his earlier points about Ma and Ban?
That's where it gets really fascinating. The rabbi argues that this process of refining ourselves and cultivating joy, they're directly linked to bridging the gap between those two realms.
Right. Ma being the heavenly intellectual realm, and Ban the earthly physical one.
Exactly. And he's saying that by refining ourselves, bringing more joy into our lives, we're weaving those two realms together. He believes as we become more spiritually refined, we can actually access and express more of our divine potential. And that potential, it manifests in the physical world through acts of kindness, compassion, creativity.
Bringing heaven down to earth.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And I love how he emphasizes it's not just individual, it's a collective shift.
Okay.
He believes that as more people embrace these principles, it creates a ripple effect. This wave of positive energy that can literally transform the world.
So not waiting for someone to come and save us, but doing our part to create the conditions for that. What I find really interesting is that he doesn't just talk about the how. He actually starts to paint a picture of what this era, the Messianic era, what it could look like.
He does. And he emphasizes it's not about some far-off utopia. It's about realizing the full potential of humanity right here, right now.
What does that look like? Give me the details.
He describes a world where peace and harmony prevail, where justice and compassion are the, guiding principles. A world where everyone has the opportunity to reach their full potential, creativity flourishes, knowledge is shared freely, and the divine presence, it's felt in every aspect of life.
It sounds incredible. But the practical question, how do we get there?
The million-dollar question. And he doesn't claim to have all the answers, but he offers some, guiding principles.
Okay, give us a roadmap.
Well, he stresses personal transformation.
Yeah.
Can't create a better world until we address those impurities within ourselves and the power of unity. We're stronger together. And he encourages us to cultivate hope, to believe that a better future is possible even when things are tough.
So inner work, collective action, and faith.
And recognizing that we're not just building a better world out there, but within ourselves, too.
Exactly. And he reminds us we're not alone. We have the support of, generations of Shluchim before us, as well as the guidance of the Torah.
It's like we're part of this long chain of people working towards this vision for centuries.
Carrying that torch.
And he doesn't just talk about individuals. He talks about the role of leadership in this whole process.
Right, that makes sense.
And he starts by making a really important distinction. He says, true leadership, it's not about power or control, it's about service.
So not lording over others, but empowering them.
He believes a true leader, well, they inspire others to be their best selves. Creates that space for growth and transformation. It's about leading by example, embodying the qualities you want to see in others.
Makes sense. If you want to create a world of peace and harmony, got to start with being a peaceful and harmonious person yourself.
And this type of leadership, he stresses, it's essential for creating a world ready for the Messiah. He argues that a leader who embodies service, compassion, wisdom, well, they can inspire others to follow, create that ripple effect that can transform communities, even nations.
It's like the leader sets the tone, creates the conditions for that positive change to take root.
But how do we know who those leaders are? I mean, there are a lot of people out there just in it for themselves, right?
He acknowledges that. It could be tough to find those leaders, but he gives us some clues, I guess, to help us discern between true leaders and those just seeking power.
Okay.
Look at their actions, their motivations, the impact they have. A true leader, their actions align with their words. Their primary motivation is to serve.
In their impact, it empowers and uplifts.
So look beyond the surface.
At the deeper essence of their character.
We don't have to be experts in leadership to recognize a true leader. We can feel it. Now, this is where things get really interesting. The rabbi, he starts drawing these parallels between the role of a leader and the role of an emissary, a shaliach.
Ah.
Remember, we talked about how every Jew is considered an emissary of God, right?
Right. We're all tasked with bringing the divine into the physical world.
And he's saying that a true leader embodies that same spirit.
Exactly. It's about representing something greater than yourself, acting as a conduit for positive change. And he argues that this connection to a higher purpose, that's what gives true leaders their strength, their resilience, their ability to inspire.
Drawing from a deeper well.
And as we kind of wrap up this part, the rabbi offers some advice for those who, well, aspire to lead. He encourages them to cultivate humility.
Okay.
To recognize that they aren't the source of their power or wisdom.
Letting go of ego, letting something greater work through you.
Precisely. He believes true leadership comes from a place of surrender, from recognizing that, well, we're all instruments of a higher purpose, and when we operate from that place of humility, we tap into a source of strength and wisdom, something far greater than anything we could achieve alone.
This makes me think of all the people I consider leaders, the ones who inspire me. What qualities do they embody that inspire you? It's a question worth pondering as we move into the final part of our deep dive.
As we get into this last part, the rabbi brings up something pretty unexpected. He talks about humor. Yeah, the role of humor in preparing for the Messianic era.
I wouldn't have thought of that. Seems a little out of place, right? We're talking about, profound transformation and then laughter.
It might seem that way at first, but the rabbi makes this, really compelling case for it.
Okay.
He sees humor as a powerful tool for breaking down barriers, shifting perspectives, even connecting on a deeper level.
So it's not all doom and gloom, got to be serious all the time?
Not at all. He actually encourages joy, lightness.
Hmm.
He sees humor as a way to, lighten the mood, release tension, create a more joyful, welcoming atmosphere.
And that's important for the Messiah.
He believes it's essential.
Takes sense when you think about it. A world full of laughter, joy, that's going to be more open to change than one that's, weighed down by all the negative stuff.
Exactly. When we can laugh at ourselves, find humor in the everyday, it helps us detach from our egos.
Right?
Let go of those rigid beliefs.
Become more open.
Exactly. Humor helps us loosen our grip on how we think things should be, and that creates space for, well, something new.
That's an interesting way to look at it. So it's not about ignoring the serious stuff, the suffering. It's about balance, recognizing that even in the darkest times, there's still hope, a spark of joy waiting to be found.
And he wants us to share that humor with others, use it to connect, to build those bridges, create a more positive world. Laughter, it's like a universal language, you know? It can help us move past our differences and come together.
Yeah, I'm seeing how powerful humor can be. It's like choosing to see the world through a different lens, the lens of possibility, finding the light even when things are tough. And that kind of leads perfectly into the rabbi's final message, his challenge to us.
He urges us to embrace this role of shaliach
Yeah, emissary.
in our own lives. He reminds us it's not just some abstract idea, it's a way we can contribute to building a better world.
So not waiting for someone to save us, but recognizing we each have the power to make that difference.
Exactly, embodying that shaliach spirit.
Yeah.
In our everyday actions. He encourages us to, bring the divine into the physical world, spread kindness, compassion, be beacons of hope.
Because the world can feel pretty dark sometimes.
It can. And he's reminding us, it's not a burden, it's a privilege.
A privilege.
Yeah, an opportunity to tap into our potential, to make a difference, connect with something bigger than ourselves.
It's like we each have a role to play.
Yeah.
In this, grand story.
He leaves us with a powerful image, this vision of a world transformed by love, compassion, unity.
Okay.
He wants us to hold that vision in our hearts. Let it guide us and never give up hope.
Wow, what a deep dive this has been. This lecture, it's so much more than just a, theological discussion. It's a call to action, an invitation to really step into our power and create a world that, reflects the best of humanity.
And it's a beautiful reminder that we're not alone.
Right. We have the support of all those Shluchim that came before us and the Torah to guide us.
So as we wrap up, we want to leave you with a question. If you were creating a welcome wagon for the Messianic era, what would you include? What kind of world would you want to present? Think about it, as you go about your day. And remember, even the smallest act of kindness, it can contribute to building that world. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.